Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining us today for another episode of Solicited Advice. I call it this because, a lot of times we give out advice that people don't even ask for. But this, we're being intentional with asking the advice around things that can help us to live better, do business better, have relationships better. That's what this is all about. So I'm excited for you to join me today. These conversations are just free flowing. We're having a conversation, excited about sharing our insights with one another and simply just organically connecting. So, I'm your host, LaChelle, also known as America's Supermom, mother of 15 children, and I'm a mental health strategist. And I think I kind of just came up with that title myself. After my own journey of 13 years of depression and three hospitalizations. Now I'm just an advocate for mental wellness, and I use any platform that I can to highlight the importance of sharing insight and wisdom so that we can be better versions of ourselves. So I'm so excited for my guest today. I have Andre here with me from the Caribbean. I wish I was there, okay? But we're excited to hear his insights around, how we can live better as high performers. I'm going to let him get into who he is and what he does, but I'm excited for our conversation today. So, Andre, I'm going to yield the mic to you to introduce yourself. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Rochelle, for the invite. Really, look forward to the conversation. Quick intro. I was born in the island of Trinidad, which is with the south, just off the coast of
Mhm.
Venezuela. Uh, I've always been a Caribbean person, although I studied in Canada. I'm a Canadian CPA. I stayed in the Caribbean. I mean, I've worked with companies in Florida and stuff, but never, like lived full time in any of those places. Uh, Over time, 30 plus years consultant, I evolved into trying to help people, successful business people, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Live a life of freedom, if you want to put it that way, right?
Mhm.
I kept seeing people always struggling with the overwork, with the overwhelm, with the burnout. And burnout in a lot of cases was never a one-time thing. It was many different times they would go through burnout. It just tended to be low grade rather than major, like you would have, experienced once or twice.
Mhm.
So I kept seeing it more and more, and then I had a Tony Robbins coach that I just had an offhand conversation with, and he told me, "You're selling the wrong thing. You need to really help people live a similar lifestyle to you." It
Mm.
took about 6 months for that to click, but when it did, I was able to embrace it, and that's basically what I'm doing now.
I
That's
love
my
that.
passion, you know.
Now, you mentioned that you're in the Caribbean and, I'm in the United States. And, I think it's just amazing how we're able to transcend borders, to be able to network, communicate. And the fact that you have never lived here in the States, to walk us through that journey of connecting with people from different cultures and backgrounds in spite of where you're geographically located. I mean, I say that to people all the time, but you're actually somebody who is living out that. So, what tips would you give somebody around networking beyond borders?
Well, as you said, it's amazing, but it only came about because of the internet,
Mm-hmm.
and as the technology refined itself. I never worked with any people outside of the like island that I was in
Mm-hmm.
until, Zoom and these things came around.
Mm-hmm.
And even then it was kind of foreign to me, like just speaking to a camera or speaking to a screen, which is why I still don't do video well. I'm more interactive than just being able to speak to a screen. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say though that I have an advantage because of where I was born in that Trinidad is multiracial. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we have fantastic culture. We experience cultures from all over the world because we have so many different nationalities there, right? And it's all become part of the landscape of Trinidad, right? So that type of background helps you to be more open to different environments, different stimuli, and just genuinely liking to meet people. We are apparently a fun-loving people coming
Hmm.
from Trinidad, as referenced by our carnival and our linemen and all these other things. And I've always just taken that everywhere that I go, because in effect, if you're always sad, it means you really shouldn't be doing whatever you're doing.
Mm,
Right? You need a different environment. But too many people get stuck with whatever
that's
belief they have or whatever conditioning they have, and they don't seem to realize that they have a choice. That they're in
yeah.
fact making a choice to stay where they're at, although they know they're not happy.
Hmm.
You
I
know?
love that. Yeah. And I think, a lot of this comes around us taking that time to be intentional and reflect on the things that we're actually doing. We can get caught up in a lot of beliefs and cliches around, work is supposed to be hard, or, you're going to have imposter syndrome. And we kind of embrace a lot of these terms around things without really exploring how we can overcome them. They've just kind of been a part of, even parenting, oh, well, you're going to be stressed or overwhelmed. It's natural. And being on the other side of that, I'm like, that is just crazy thinking, because now I feel like I'm in a lot of flow. It was so funny. We did a interview yesterday, and they did a segment saying, can you tell how old every child is? And I was the first one to go, and I couldn't even name the first one's age. So, there would have been a time that I would have been all stressed out. Oh my gosh, what are people going to think? And it's like, hey, I mean, I'm lucky to get their names right, let alone their birthday or age. So, talk to us around, how do you connect with people to help them to realize that the reality that they may be living is not the best that might be possible, because we have embraced, excuses or cliches or even labels around certain things that are not.
Okay, that's a lot you just threw there. That wasn't one question. But I want to go back a little bit. Yeah. So you use the term embrace. I
Hmm.
kind of push back against that a little bit. I don't think you'll have embraced it. You just don't know any different because you've been
That's true. That's true.
all the time with that
Hmm.
message. Right? And something that amazes me, I guess, because we are a lot more easygoing and we don't have
Hmm.
to be politically correct all the time. Matter of fact, we don't really care for it.
Hmm.
No. We take you
Hmm.
at face value. You are, to us, as you show up, as your
Hmm.
actions dictate, right? So all the
Yes.
politically correct stuff, we don't we don't take on that stress, and that's a stress that you all take on in a big way,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then you use the term label. You all come up with labels for every single thing, like the smallest thing. You all want to label it, and
Hmm.
I think it's a money thing in effect because once you could label it, then you could create an industry off of it. Yeah.
Mm.
And more, people become so bombarded by so many things that they are labeled with. Right?
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. Like if you start buying into it, where do you find the time to actually step back and say, this doesn't make sense to me? You know? And it could be your health, it could be your nutrition, so many different things are labeled in so many different ways. And if you don't see that all of it is money related, right,
Mm.
you are going to stay stuck, right? You need to be able to step back and say, does this even make sense to me? Does this serve whatever purpose I want, whatever joy I want in life, how I want to live? Does it serve any of that? If it doesn't, walk away from it. But you
Yeah.
have to be able to start questioning everything that you're being fed.
I love that. And I think that's true. And, a lot of it has to do with your environment. Because I know that there are times where I share things with my kids and it messes up their comfort zone. They don't really want to hear sometimes what I'm saying, even though they may see that the results that they're having is not making sense. I use them as an example because I feel like there is a period where I feel like I'm speaking a foreign language because I've been where they are and now I'm on the other side. But, trying to communicate that to them can sometimes be a challenge. And then the same thing, even with people that might be in your industry or they are doing the same job that you're doing and you've done it and you've learned that this is just definitely something that you don't want to be bothered with or whatever. So what tips would you give someone around opening the communication in a way that, not that we're telling people what to do, even just the name of this show, solicited advice, we're intentional about this, but how do you communicate with people to not offend them or, kind of meet them where they are to share some insights that could be beneficial for
I'm again pushing back a little bit here, but you can't be too concerned about if you offend them,
them? Hmm.
right? Truth
Yeah.
is truth, right? You
Hmm.
know, opening your eyes is opening your eyes. If you see it, you can't unsee it, right?
Right.
If you choose to stay blind, closed-minded, any of those terms you want to use, deaf, right?
Hmm.
Then you will, right? Because
Hmm.
the fear is too big, right? Moving from that position, whatever position you're at, whether it's a position of wealth, a position of poverty, whatever position you're at, right? If the fear of moving past that is too strong, you are going to stay there, right?
Hmm.
Because it means the potential reward and the fear of making a change to achieve the reward isn't great enough for you to shift,
That's good.
right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that's really the two ends of the spectrum there for you, right? Um, I want to just go back. You asked me what tips, right?
Yeah.
I'll, I'll take a piece from from one of your videos, which is like, I
Hmm.
stopped listening to the news and I laughed from the time I heard you say that because I am dead same, right? And that's where the freedom to think and to breathe and all those things comes from. You're not no longer bombarded by that constant narrative, whatever the narrative is of the time,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And
I
people, yeah, people make noise with me. And I'm like, whatever is important to me reaches me somehow. It may reach me a day late, 2 days late, whatever it is, but it reaches somehow, right? I don't have to stay glued, right? And again, it comes back to money. Look at your
yeah.
media, right? One particular topic, and they'll bring on 10 different experts, all of whom are being paid or
Mm-hmm.
benefiting in some way, right? To
Mm-hmm.
keep bombarding you and beating a particular topic.
Yeah. I
Why?
love that.
You know?
I agree with that news piece because for me, it took some time for me to recognize how influential that was in my daily routine. So, it really, I would wake up, great mood, watch the news, and then I'd be the unpaid news anchor going around telling everybody what's going on and totally derailed from what it was that I wanted to do. And now that I don't watch the news, I feel like there's a filter. So even when people tell me news, there's a space where I could say, "Oh, well, how did you find out about that?" Well, did they ask anybody this or that? And most of the people who tell me stuff, they're like, I don't know. This is what they say or whatever. And it's like, you don't even know if this is true. I'm
But
getting all worked up and we don't even know if it's the right story. Okay.
but it goes back to the conditioning. You're being
Mm-hmm.
conditioned, we've been conditioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything on the screen is an authority, and we defer to it, right? Because they're not
Mhm.
going to come and just give us crap, right? That's our belief. That's how we've been conditioned, right?
Mhm.
And I guess for a while, in like the early part of media, and like 18 whatever, right?
Mhm.
That was probably the case, and then it became bastardized, and it became a tool for money. Period.
Mhm.
So if you don't start to question the agenda behind the news, right?
Mhm.
And also look at what commercials are running during those segments, right?
Mhm.
You never get it.
Yeah,
you know,
it's true. I love that. I mean, I'm over here taking notes because, I have so many ideas that come up and thoughts around conversations. And I feel like I don't understand why people don't do this more because there's so much that you can get from a conversation, with being on Zoom or, in this interview like we're doing now, because we've never met in person or even on camera. And there's so many overlaps with us having a connection with our mindset or routines or habits that we miss out on, because many people are afraid to get on camera or video or things like that just to be out of their comfort zone. So, for people who are looking to expand in that way, because, we have a lot of businesses where, we work with our clients behind the scenes, and in this age that we're at now, it's important to show up as your brand and let people know about you so that they can know, like, and trust you. But for somebody who feels that they're an introvert, they're a high performer, what advice would you give them around getting on camera? And where should they start?
well, I'm probably the worst person for that. but
But you're showing up. You see what I'm saying? So you've leveled up.
no, but again, as I said, I'm interactive, right? I
Mhm.
love I love having conversations, right?
Mhm.
Once it's in this format, I'm fine. It's when it's like as a speaker or somebody teaching or lecturing or something like that. That's where it doesn't work for me, right?
Oh, okay.
But once there's interaction, whether it's a Q&A, any type of interview,
Mhm.
I'm fine. So it's more like find your comfort zone, like what's a
Mhm.
small step that you're willing to make. And
Mhm.
if you ever have a Zoom call, a Google Meet, any of those platforms with someone, right? That's your entry point. Like if that's where you're comfortable, look for there first. Don't necessarily look at being a speaker or a featured, you know, whatever they want to call it.
Mhm.
Just find a space where you feel at least I could take that little step.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
yeah, once you take your little step, you will know if it's for you or not. But the point is, don't be afraid of change. And
Mhm.
if you haven't done it before, you're not going to be good at it
Yeah.
initially, right? So
Mhm.
don't be afraid of what you think is failure. No, it's a learning lesson. You're not going to
Mhm.
repeat the same mistakes on the next interview or the next call. I met someone recently online again, just like we
Mhm.
met, and she is now considered a successful author, right?
Mhm.
A book sold 150,000 copies or something to that effect. Or I don't know. But at least she's doing six figures in revenue from just the
Mhm.
book sales. Yeah? But her four books before that were all flops.
Mm.
It's her fifth book that she found a success. Right?
Mhm.
And when I was speaking with her, because she was a very interesting story, kind of just like you, a little
Mhm.
slightly different way. But she was doing something, she was making money, right? And she was
Mhm.
not enjoying it, right? She was multi six figures. and she was not enjoying it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like she dreaded having to do it every day. She said eventually, right? And she made a choice to just step away.
Mm.
That's the one important question, which is where a lot of people don't see the other side of it, because she was married at the time, right?
Okay.
So I asked her about the support from the partner, because you can't just step away if you don't have that type of support, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that partner supported through 4 book failures before she became a success, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people look at the so-called overnight successes, don't see it's 10 years in the making, don't see all this support, right? Because they're
Mm-hmm.
always being presented as the one person who was responsible for the success and the success they're now portraying, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, you have to have support. It doesn't matter what type of support, where it comes from, even if it's just somebody to run ideas by, to say, I'm feeling stressed today, like, you need support, right?
Yeah.
You cannot do this on your own, but you're conditioned to think that you need to do it on your own,
So true.
and asking for
Mm-hmm.
help is a sign of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a sign of realness.
Love that. It's true. Now, I tell you 30 minutes is just not enough time because I have 1,000 questions over here. But I think my last question I would ask, because I am in the same category, I would say we're seasoned, right? We have a lot of wisdom, which is obvious. I look at my gray hair up here.
Uh,
Um, but
so,
yeah,
no, I need to push back there too. It's called silver
I
foot.
love that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
my
gray.
mom, she
Gray
calls it
food.
receipts for living. Okay.
There
So
you
I
go.
love that. Receipts for living. But how do you, when you're even dealing with high performers, there's a lot where we do have a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience, and connecting with a younger audience, especially even people who maybe they're older and they are back into the workforce because they're sandwiched in between kids and their parents. So we have a dynamic where we're working longer and things like that. So, what advice would you give someone around being able to show up fully confident around their age and how they may be viewed in whatever industry, if they want to reinvent themselves or just with their performance, even as it changes. We went yesterday for a show and I was wiped out by the time I got home. I just don't have the same energy like I used to. So, what advice would you give someone around that when they are ready to make a new change, but they feel like age is a factor?
Okay, first thing, age is never a factor. It's just a number,
Okay.
right? I mean, in both of our cases, as you said, we have, the silver here, the receipts of wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we still showing up with energy, right? When
Mm-hmm.
people think of age, they think of slowing down, somebody who's no longer capable. Yeah. Look around, right? Not everybody fits that mold. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know people 20, 30 years younger than me that can't do half the stuff that I do. They
Yeah.
can't do the push-ups I do. They can't do the hikes, any of that type of stuff.
I'm
Right?
raising my hand. I can't do it.
Well, for me, I recognized a long time ago that it's only one body that I have, right? And that has to
Yeah.
take me
I
through.
love that. Yeah.
Whatever age I live to, that body has to take me there, right?
Yeah.
So how do I want that body to show up
Mm-hmm.
as I age, right? As I progress? Do I want to be with a walking stick? Do I want to be confined to a wheelchair? Do I want people that have to be helping me all the time? No, that's
Mm-hmm.
not how I want to show up,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
I need to do things all the time. Now, granted, I have a sports background, and I still play sports. I still hike. that type of stuff. But that's just me, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
work for everybody.
Mhm.
But coming back to your question about changing and age and stuff,
Mhm.
age is actually a benefit at that
Mm.
stage. And as your mom said, is receipts for living,
Mhm.
receipts for life.
Mhm.
Right? What they never do is they always think about it from a job perspective. Right?
Mm.
Okay, go back to your job since that's where it's comfortable for people to start from. Right? You were paid to do a particular job, which means that you had value, right?
Mhm.
That you were never allowed to see, right?
Mhm.
Because you were conditioned into trading time for dollars, right?
Yeah.
And it goes back to the work harder and all those types of beliefs and stuff. But if you were being paid to do something, right?
Right.
That's a starting point for you for your value. You're not going to go back into that job. Look at what you were bringing to the job. Look at what your deliverables were,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Once you could start to see that, and again, that's why I say you always need help, right? Because when you're too close to it, you can't see it.
Yeah.
It's the people outside who could help you see your value, right?
Mhm.
You can then, with help, because it's obviously going to be foreign to you, especially if you were job market only, but even for entrepreneurs, right?
Mhm.
How do you package what you know into an offer that makes sense to other people? And who do you target, right?
Mhm.
Who would be your ideal client profile? Right? So everybody has value and everybody can run a business, especially in this day and age, as we spoke about with Zoom and all these things,
Yeah.
right? You have at least the potential to be a freelancer, right? Providing value that people pay you premium for because of your experience,
Yeah.
right? Without having to be stuck in a 9 to 5, 40, 60 hour week.
Mhm.
You may be able to work 20 hours and possibly make the same money you were making when you had just left that job. But you need the help, how to package it, how to present it. Is this even something that you want to do?
Right.
Right? Because
Mhm.
as you age, right, or as we progress, let's just call it progress,
I
right?
like that. I like that.
You
Yeah.
know, more and more we should be doing stuff that give us joy, that give us fulfillment, give us
Yeah.
purpose, right? Not that we are stuck because we have to go back into the workforce because my pension isn't, reaching where it's supposed to reach or where you thought it would
Mhm.
reach, right? No, because then you're still going to be in that constant low grade stress. You're not going to have
Yes.
any enjoyment to life.
Mhm.
So,
That makes sense.
it's intention, but it's design as well, right?
Yeah.
People see that they can design their life, right? Meaning,
Mhm.
this is what I want my life to look like. Once you have that down, okay, again, you're going to need help. I'm guaranteeing you're going to need help, right? Because you're going to
Mhm.
reach this level. Once you get that down, right, then you know what activities you're willing to do and what activities can support that life that you are now clear on that you want.
Love that. I mean, that just is really makes a lot of sense. And, again, these conversations help us to expand our thoughts around things because, you could be in a silo, which that was me for 13 years, just with my own thoughts that were crazy, not factual, all opinionated, that I came up with on my own. And so I think that's really important. That you bring that up. I love that age is a benefit. It's all in our mindset. I remember watching Michael Jordan's interview where one of his teammates said he always would say, "Why would I think about missing a shot that I haven't taken yet?"
Yep.
So it's that mindset. Is it negative or positive? That's going to make all the difference. So, really appreciate this conversation. And I wish we had more time because I have lots more questions. But I do want to give you the opportunity to share any final thoughts, anything you have coming up, and where people can connect with you.
Easiest place to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I could always drop a link in the chat if you want.
Yeah.
Um, and I would like to share when you are asking your questions, right? Especially
Hmm.
people at different levels and where they want to be at. And you didn't want to offend. The point, my thing is that we don't necessarily offend, but we need to help them recognize themselves
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
particular situation, right?
Hmm.
So I'd like to share a piece that will help some people possibly recognize themselves. And if they recognize themselves, then I'm just a conversation away.
That's good.
So I could just share those two links for you and take it from there. um,
Absolutely. I
um,
think that's amazing because, well, what we'll do is we can share them here in the chat on the um and then I can put them in the show notes. So you could send them to me, and then I'll also make sure that those are shared. And I love that point because I feel like, if we're not aware of things that are happening or how we're showing up, we're never going to be able to fix it. Right. So that awareness is so important. And I remember a quote that says, "You can't see the picture if you're in the frame." So you do need other people's input on how to show up or what things they may see that are in your blind spots. So, really appreciate those points that you're making. And it was a pleasure meeting you. And I'm looking forward to us connecting and collaborating again in the future.
Likewise, as I said, I'm always open for a chat. So feel free to reach out anytime that you would like to have another chat. Um, I'll just share the links with you, and then you could share it in the show notes.
Okay.
And Summer, I appreciate your
Yes.
comments. I love your crown of splendor. That's an excellent comment that she has there. That's what our
Yes.
silk
Yes.
uh, resulted.
Summer is, she is a very close friend. I call her my sister. She's a pancreatic cancer survivor. So it's been 8 years. She was given a 9% chance of survival 8 years ago, and she's still here helping other pancreatic cancer patients and working with organizations to help raise awareness around that. So we love you, Summer. Thanks so much for watching. But
Yeah, thanks,
thank you
Summer.
again, Andre, and enjoy that weather. Looking forward to connecting again. And I want to thank all of you guys for watching, whether you were live or on the replay. Feel free to share this information and connect with Andre. If there was something that he said that resonated with you, or if you want to start thinking like that, right? Age is a benefit. That might be something that is transformative thinking. So if you want to connect with him and find out more about how that could be your insight as well, connect with them on LinkedIn. And again, thank you guys so much for watching and have an amazing day. Bye, everybody.
Bye.